The special education system within our district is broken on so many levels, and it needs to be re-examined in a.
The special ed program in this district is inherently broken. Trust is broken. Is to stop othering our autistic children and to start treating them with the respect and dignity they deserve.
Mr. Superintendent knows we were quite vocal about the fact that this program, the special education program at KLSD, is broken.
It is our experience with our superintendent and his cabinet and our staff that they have worked tirelessly and on a daily basis to foster an ongoing learning environment in which professional learning and humility, that none of our programs is perfect. And I do feel it is important to acknowledge the disconnect that many people are feeling between the very positive experiences they're having in our schools and our classrooms and some of what's being said, or any sort of insinuation that a department is broken. You know, that's coming from a few people, and it has not been my experience or observation that that's
Just a month ago, I learned that the teacher I liked and trusted was locking children in a bathroom as punishment. Now I will always wonder if my child was punished too. I will never know, simply because my son cannot tell me. The idea of school authorities putting their hands on any children and not immediately notifying the parent is an outrage. In what kind of world is such an incident not cause for an immediate phone call to the parent? What, may I ask, is possibly higher up on the to-do list of local school officials? Truthfully, the time for action was 2 years ago when this board learned of a special education student who choked a child and threw a child into a wall and locked other children in bathrooms.
As we all know, earlier this year, a parent in our community discovered that their nonverbal autistic child had been physically restrained nearly 36 times in 2 months. Despite the near daily occurrence of these physical holds, the district failed to notify the parents. This child had no way of telling their parent what was happening to them. Administration in this district clearly and purposefully chose to keep this information from this child's parents for 2 whole months, and there is simply no excuse for this. The other students in this class witnessed these traumatic events day in and day out, and their parents were kept in the dark as well.
There is grandiose indifference here to the children that are in this special education program. This difference was truly grandiose in my son's experience of being restrained repeatedly and having his educational experience turned into one long emergency with no notification to the parents. This indifference was also on grandiose display with the experience of another student who was assaulted and an unknown number of students that were abused by a teacher over a course of years.
Your sleeplessness, your sudden and uncharacteristic anger, the disappearance of your brilliant smile, the unexpected return of your seizures, all speak dimly to those who love you. Given this, I have spent the last 3 months racking my brain to imagine a version of the events that happened in my son's class that is reasonable and appropriate. But all I can come up with is that either these events did not meet the criteria for physical restraint and emergency intervention, or there were 34 emergencies in my son's classroom in 8 weeks. Staff are still using the very same practices that created a situation they could not control, and are still acclimated to a culture that encouraged secrecy over the uncomfortable truths that could have protected our children. For this reason, we are impatient, and we do not believe our children are safe.
Allow us to provide reassurance that every single instance, allegation of child abuse in an educational setting that is brought to any one of our attention at any time, including here tonight in this meeting, and as you all know, at the June 17th meeting, where our superintendent followed up with several of you the very next day, those allegations are prioritized, taken with the utmost seriousness of purpose, and are investigated to completion and to the satisfaction of the Board of Education. We rely and trust on our educational experts to help us to understand how do we best keep children safe.
I can say tonight that children are not secluded in our schools. It is complicated. We absolutely want all children to be safe at all times. I wish it were easy. It's not easy.
Mr. Superintendent said that children in this district are not secluded. That goes against what was said before. Am I wrong?
No, and in fact,
is-
she's actually inaccurate and the superintendent is correct.
I believe we have acted in our responsibilities in situations that we have, acted
See,
swiftly.
I am here tonight because one of my children has had a behavioral intervention plan for over 3 years. And unfortunately, throughout the duration of this plan, teachers and administrators have admitted to not following it.
As I'm sitting with the principal holding my hand, the words that no parent ever thinks they will hear. A person in close contact with your child has been removed from the classroom until the investigation over allegations of child abuse is completed. When I thought this was an isolated incident, later to come find out it was a pattern towards several children. Not a pattern over the course of a week or even a month, but a pattern of behaviors from this staff member over a prolonged period of time.
During that time, over those few months, my son began exhibiting behaviors at home that were not consistent with his personality at all. When I called the school to find out if anything happened or if there was anything new happening at school, I was told no. It sickens me to think that they thought this would have no effect on my child just because he couldn't speak.
When I saw the video, I saw my son running out of the classroom, his teacher catching up with him, giving him the basket hold. And this was all very well choreographed, if I may use that. And there were 6 or 7 people involved altogether. It was all happening in the hallway. They all knew what they were doing. The basket hold was happening on the floor. He was sitting down and was holding my son. 2 more people were holding his legs. 2 more people were in a standby with a wheelchair, I assume, because sometimes after a hold like that, he can pass out and he would not be able to walk back and they would wheel him back in the classroom. Later that day, this was continuing for 10 minutes. Later that day, I got a call around noon, I believe, that my son fell asleep.
I witnessed my daughter's aide yank her by the arm hard twice. I spoke to the teacher. Of course, this is the teacher who we later found out was abusive and has been asked to retire. Ultimately, I was convinced by all of them not to make a complaint, which they said would ruin the life of the aide. So nothing was done.
And I'm not sure that just creating additional opportunity for that frustration is really going to help us provide the best possible education for every student. I also believe there was a perpetuation of some misconstrued scenarios, and I'm not sure that creating more and more access for a repetition or a perpetuation of misunderstandings in some cases is actually helping every child be safer and have a better experience in our school district. So
Installing cameras in self-contained classrooms for minimally and nonverbal students would be an excellent first step.
Cameras in all self-contained special education classrooms. Not cameras for the parents to view at any point, but for administration to review after a report is made, or just part of the supervision that every teacher requires.
I support the installation of cameras in self-contained classrooms where students may be minimally or nonverbal.
The district should install cameras in the self-contained classrooms. Anywhere that a child does not have a voice should have a camera.
Our requests are pretty simple. Training to promote autism acceptance, cameras in classrooms where students cannot speak for themselves.
Bring cameras into self-contained classrooms, which will keep kids and teachers alike safe. Require autism-specific training and demand accountability and transparency.
We absolutely want all children to be safe at all times. That drives our work. It also drives me to continue to invite some of you into conversation so that we can continue to better understand each other, always with the goal of improving. That is always our goal, to improve. I wish it were easy. It's not easy.
After 8 months of fighting for my son's needs and hiring a lawyer and advocate, the district reclassified him and put an IEP in place. The district hasn't made it easy for my son to receive proper supports so he can reach his full potential. From my experience, I found that the only way to properly support a child in this district is to hire an advocate or an attorney, and that is absolutely unacceptable.
My role has tremendous responsibility, not only to our children, but to all the children out there who don't have a voice. We as a group will not stop fighting for them. We are not.
Having to fight for accountability and transparency is shocking.
Many parents have noticed a lack of inclusion in KLSD. This is something I have personally been fighting for my daughter
Because
since
I'm
day.
I'm tired of fighting. If your primary goal is to provide a safe and appropriate education to our children, why do we have to fight so hard for that?
When parents have to fight for basic things, and when they know that unless they bring an advocate or an attorney to that fight, they will not get what their child needs.
It makes me really sad that people would question that, because I know who these people are and how committed they are to the work that they do as a school board member. So I hope that you can trust that. And I think that there's probably actions that make that not seem like it's true. But
we serve on this board because we have certain views and certain passions. And to have those called into question by people who don't really know me at all, to be called arrogant, smug, too comfortable, et cetera, is a hard, we're trying to help.
We sat here and we listened with, and for me specifically, with great compassion and respect, and then feeling really pretty attacked and accused of things that are simply not true. And
I've repeatedly interviewed world-renowned experts and written for highly respected publications, including the Washington Post, Self, Parents, and more. Not once have I ever heard a professional recommend restraining a child, isolating a child, or physically harming a child for non-preferred behaviors.
Given the major problems that many of us know exist in the special education department, along with the level of mistrust among many of us, I am asking this board to begin the process of bringing in an outside consulting group to do a complete evaluation of this major component in our educational system.
Again, we have a lot of expertise in our community. We're blessed to have a lot of people that know a lot about this.
Because yes, there's expertise in the community and we really appreciate that. And there's expertise in the district too.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? And we don't always agree. Because as I said, it's really complicated to form a productive meeting out of a group that size. There are
And I do feel it is important to acknowledge the disconnect that many people are feeling between the very positive experiences they're having in our schools and our classrooms and some of what's being said publicly on social media, in the newspaper, et cetera, and of course here tonight. And so I think it's important to clarify for people who might be wondering and tuning in for the first time ever or in a long time, to clarify that this level of fear, concern, or any sort of insinuation that a department is broken, that's coming from a few people. And it has not been my experience or observation that that's a view that's widely held in our schools.